Bill Gates is now the largest farmland owner in America. Did you know that when nobody was paying attention, Bill Gates bought up a whole bunch of farmland in the United States? He may no longer be the richest man. I think he's number 3 on the list now, but he can claim the new title. Bill Gates is now America's farmland king. He became the largest owner of farmland in the United States by quietly buying up massive plots across the country. His portfolio comprises almost 250,000 acres of farmland and nearly 27,000 acres of land across 19 states. And so the biggest chunks of the land holdings are in Louisiana and Arkansas. He owns 69,000 acres in Louisiana, 48,000 acres in Arkansas. He also owns 16,000 acres in his home state of Washington, including a 14,500 acre tract in a region that was purchased for nearly $171 million. And so it's uncertain why Gates has invested so much in farmland or how they will be used. And all the representatives did not get back in time for the story to explain why. Well, let me kind of tie in Bill Gates to what we're going to talk about here today, because the future of food is definitely in the hands of billionaire investors. And I've been talking a lot about this, you guys. We have so many special interests involved in trying to affect the food that ends up on your dinner table. And we know a lot of these fake meat companies, the whole Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, all of those kinds of things, all of those are being propped up by billionaire investors. And we've even had the Impossible Foods guy, the CEO, come out blatantly and say, oh, our goal is to eradicate all meat consumption by the year 2035. And so he thinks they're going to get rid of meat in our diet because it's unhealthy, it's going to harm us, all the things I've talked about forever. And so I think what Bill Gates is up to is buy up the farmland and control the food and have more places to grow the key ingredients that go into these plant-based burgers and other things in the food supply. And they don't care about your health. I'm going to tell you that right now. There ain't a darn bit of anything great about what they're doing. Just wanted you to be aware of this, because this is something that's happening, that with all the chaos of everything happening in the world, maybe you didn't know Bill Gates bought up a whole bunch of farmland and he's the biggest farmer in America now, right? If you're just joining us, we are talking about what the future of food will look like. And I put food in quotations by design because some of this stuff I would not describe as food, as you will see in this article I'm going to read here in a minute. But I was just talking about how Bill Gates has now become the biggest farmer in America, owning 250,000 acres of farmland all across America. I have another story here about a new study, and all of this lays the groundwork for what the future food supply will look like. Headline out of The Guardian: organic meat production just as bad for the climate. According to a new study, analysis found the lowest impact meat was still far more damaging than the worst plant foods. So they are laying the groundwork, you guys, that even the best organic, grass-fed, grass-finished types of foods still not good enough. And they're putting it under the guise of it's harming the planet. And it won't take much for laws to be put into place and claims about greenhouse gas emissions and needing to reduce them to make things happen. And so they're vilifying it. They're already looking at implementing policies of meat taxes to reflect the true cost of the food. They're going to basically tax meat out of the market. It would rise the price of meat by upwards of 40% when they do this. Organic meat would also go up, around 25%. Conventional milk will rise by about a third in cost for shoppers. Organic milk by about a fifth. And so they are doing all they can to make real food look bad. And remember, billionaire buys up 250,000 acres. Bill Gates. It's all interconnected. Just laying the groundwork for what I'm talking about here today. So actually in 2018, there were 2 articles written in this Fast Company magazine. So fastcompany.com. This first one was written in January, and the second one was written in the month of April. So let's get to the January one. And all of this is about the future of food and what we'll be consuming in the next 20 years. And then I asked the question, will real food die? And you might be interested in knowing and seeing as I'm reading through this, some of the things that they predicted will happen 20 years from now, we're already seeing some of the groundwork for it happen even now. All right, so this headline, imagine a better future of food now, or be shocked by what we get. We're making the argument that we need to think about fantastic possibilities for the future of how we eat. After all, it's better to be scared by fiction than to be harmed by fact. Most of us have generally stopped bothering to imagine new futures of food. Instead, we let others do the imagination, often optimizing for a limited set of values like efficiency, productivity, and financial return. As a result, our food system has become a well-oiled machine, producing monoculture cash crops and billions of animals with the industrial efficiency one would expect in a factory, not in a farm. And by the way, like a lot of these plant-based advocates that hate the meat production, guess what? A lot of us that believe in real food, we also abhor meat production. This has always been the fascinating thing to me. When I was in the paleo community a decade ago, they were always talking about we need to be more sustainable in the farming. We need to, have better practices with the ruminants and all of that. Like that was a basic tenet. And that's all that they're asking for here is let's stop the whole factory farm system. Let's stop the whole industrialized crops, namely grains and soy, corn, all of these things. We agree with them on all of that. And so there is a middle ground between having all of this industrialized food and then thinking that you have to go all plant-based, right? There is a middle ground there. Our food has become fast, filled with addictive sugars and empty calories, instead of healthy or humane. This gloomy picture does not have to be our reality in the future. The future is not like a sunrise, something we wake up to every morning with regularity. There are many futures, each of which is full of possibility and opportunity, none of which are fate. And it's critical to think through the possible futures so we can help shape them intentionally. I hope that as we move forward and as we have conversations about what food will look like in the future, that we don't fall into the trap of, well, we have new technology that ... you fill in the blank. Because it seems to me every time new technology comes around, I remember a few years ago, they were growing meat in a lab. So they'd have little cells of meat, and then they would create meat in a lab. And I remember when they made the first burger that was made out of all cell lab grown meat, somebody ate it and it was like a big to-do made about it. Oh my gosh, they had the first burger made in a lab out of cells. And it's like, okay, but like, what's your point? Why are we doing that? Not all of the images are optimistic or utopian. The future can be scary, dark, and dangerous. It's better to be surprised by a simulation than blindsided by reality. And we need to take back the power of imagining the future food system. So this person writing this article, I don't see their name, but we need to take it back using the team at the Food Futures Lab at the Institute for the Future. That's a real thing. It is a think tank in Palo Alto, California. They created 6 images from the future of food to help provoke and inspire this type of thinking. They include blenders. Listen to some of these ideas for future food. Blenders that tweet fake food safety scandals in a self-shopping kitchen. A Pokemon Go-like game for achieving microbiome diversity in your diet. Lunchabios, a do-it-yourself school lunch kit for kids to culture their own cheese using synthetic biology, and more. That's kind of weird, some of that stuff. Mike Lee of the Future Market also designs images of possibility, food products that don't yet exist, but may in the not too distant future. He recently created this thing called Jia Rao Canting, a Chinese restaurant imagined in the year 2038. Upon first glance, the menu doesn't appear out of the ordinary, but when you look a lot closer at it, you see that it has cultured meat on the menu. Meat grown from animal cells outside of an animal. It's delivered with drones and they accept Bitcoin. Jia Rao may be delivering cultured meat to your doorstep with drones sooner than 2038 because of the imagination here. Shojin Meat, a citizen project in Japan, has also created images of Mars colonists growing protein and high-rise algae farms in the year 2203. So they're thinking way ahead about the future of food. Another developed a series of artifacts called Animals Doing Capitalism, which includes a countertop meat extruder that cultures bacon, produces fat profits for living pigs, who own their own IP to a cell phone. When you imagine the future of food, what comes to mind? Some of that stuff's crazy, right? Really crazy. Perhaps you see vast networks of shipping containers filled with vertical hydroponic farms or fully autonomous farms, glowing greens with purple LED lights. Maybe you see climate refugees building resilience through their ability to carry their food rituals and stories with them wherever they go. Or you might see a kitchen cabinet full of pills, each one a unique, ready for quick and efficient consumption. Now, the pill thing is interesting to me. So, if the future of food is in a pill, who gets enjoyment out of pill? Now, if we take the enjoyment out of food and only make it about the nutrition that you get, I suppose if you only see it as fuel and only see it as nutrients, that taking a pill takes the guesswork out of it. But part of the enjoyment of the human experience is, I don't know, digesting and enjoying your food, not taking it in a pill form. That's kind of weird to me. Our images of the future often become the reality, though. In fact, portrayals of the future of food from just a few decades ago are now surprisingly familiar. Ubiquitous features of modern foodscape like meal replacements, fake meat, genetic modification were once figments of our imagination. Remember the Jetsons? And they pushed a little button, make me a hot fudge sundae. Out comes a hot fudge sundae. Is that kind of come? But like, how do they do that? Like, is that going to be food or is that going to be a chemical concoction? I urge you to continue imagining possible futures of food, identify which futures best optimize the values you hold, and then take the steps necessary to build those futures. We all have agency in turning the possible into the actual. Once you identify what you want the future to look like, make it happen, change your behavior, blah, 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 blah. All right, so imagining the future of food should not be limited to those who work at think tanks or consulting firms. Everyone needs to engage in this exercise and feel empowered. After all, the future of food needs us as much as we need it. Some people may hear this discussion of the future of food and think, hey, the food that we have available today, the food that I'm eating in a real food lifestyle that nourishes my ketogenic, carnivore, paleo, real food body, is pretty good. What do you mean, imagine the food of the future? Just what we're doing today, bring it up to date.